Alright, can you guys hear me? Is anybody actually there? Nope, one is. Anybody else? I give people 1 or 2 more minutes and I'll get started. Let me get the Quizlet up. Oh, I know. I'm just giving people time to get here, Chase. It's also, it's a little bit better when I get people that want to participate talk. Let's see. Great. Okay. All right, well, let's go ahead and start going over it. So the Electoral College. I don't really have any notes, study materials ready. I just want to do review questions. I'll make it really short with you guys. Um, so the quick version is this, and this is mainly going to be more of a listening one. We use this only to elect the president and vice president. So when we're actually going to vote, we're choosing electors. In Virginia, for instance, we have 13. So whichever way the popular vote goes in Virginia, then those electors will then cast our 13 electoral votes per that candidate. So if the majority of our state votes Democratic, all 13 go Democrat. If it's Republican, all 13 go Republican. The reason all of them go one way or the other is winner take all, which just is a fancy way of saying like the winner gets all the electoral votes. We don't split them up. So if you win by one vote, it's not like one person gets 7, the other one gets 6. Whether you win by 1, 100, 1,000, a million, doesn't matter. You get all the state's electoral votes. Because we are a winner-take-all system, and they have to hit that magic number of 270, this system highly favors using only 2 parties. Because you have to get to that majority of 270. Otherwise, it goes to Congress to decide who wins the presidency. So, that's a little bit different. So if I ask you what type of system does Electoral College use, the correct answer is winner take all. If I ask you Electoral College favors what type of party system or something like that, I'm looking for 2-party. The magic number again being 270, as you guys learned from when we played that game, Win the White House, which again you can go to icivics.org to play, and then the total number of electoral votes is 538. So if you do the math, half of 538 is 269. So they wanted to make sure you got 1 over half. So that's why you have to get 270. How do we get to 538? Well, you have 100 senators total, 2 per state. You have 435 representatives based on population, meaning each state is guaranteed at least 1 representative, but they get more depending on how popular their state is, how many people live in their state. Um, and then they gave 3 extra for DC, because DC is technically not a state, but there's obviously people that live there, so they wanted them to have voting rights. And that's really it. There's going to be questions where I might ask you, like, how do we figure out the amount of votes? So, I did forget one thing. So what do we call the combination of House and Senate? That is our congressional representation. So I'm telling you now, the hardest question on the test is, I'll ask you a question like, for instance, how do we determine the amount of electoral votes per state? And what everybody writes down is population. And while population plays a factor, because it tells us how many people, how many representatives are going to be per state, it's based on population, that's incorrect, because you got to add the 2 senators. So it is the amount of electoral votes per state is based on the state's congressional representation. Remember when we did the little study guide? It's 2 senators plus however many representatives. So let's go through this really quick. Go ahead. Let's answer 31, 32, 33, 34, 35. And we'll make this a little quicker one than everyone. There's only 1 test. There's going to be 10 questions like normal, Chase. Okay? So answers, Chase, since it's just you, it looks like. Let's go ahead and have you answer 31, 32, 33, 34, 35. And when you're done with that, I'll go over them with everybody else who's watching. And then I'll do some Quizlet flashcards and we'll call it a day after that. And I can already tell by looking at the questions, there's one other little thing I gotta go over. But I'll wait till Chase is done. So, 31. What election is used? What do we use the Electoral College for, essentially? We use it to pick, he's correct in saying president and vice president. So in our most recent election, yes, we elected Donald Trump, but we also elected Mike Pence. I see a lot of times, because usually that might come up as a multiple select, meaning you got to choose more than one answer. People will go, oh, that's easy. We use it to pick the president. And they don't click on vice president. So we use it to pick both the president and vice president. Very good. 32. Chase is right. Congressional representation. We were just talking about that. So the amount of electoral votes each state has is based on how many members of Congress, your congressional representation. Chase is 2 for 2. If you don't know 33, just feel free to say pass. This is where I need my sound effects. So 33 reads, when voters cast their votes in the presidential election, what are they actually selecting? It's not electoral votes. Look at the question prior. What is the number of electors in each state determined by it? So number 33, when the voters cast their votes in the presidential election, what are they actually selecting? They're selecting the electors. Remember in your notes where it says the first step is choosing from a slate of electors. These are the people that are going to cast whatever amount of votes that we have per state. So if we lived in a state where there wasn't that, the population was more sparse, spread out, it'd only be 3 electors. But remember, technically we're voting for the electors. Again, there's some other terms to know. Sparse being spread out, dense, really on top of one another. Think of it in Virginia. Northern Virginia is very dense. A lot of people live close together. Whereas in Southern Virginia, it's a little bit more sparse. People are spread out. Number 34, he is correct. So number 34 in the 2004 election, candidate George W. Bush won 54%. John Kerry won 45%. How many Virginia's 13 electoral votes did we give to Bush? We gave them all to George W. Bush. because that is how winner take all works. Hi, Miriam. And Chase, the last one. Why do presidential candidates tend to travel to large, heavily populated states among the months during the election? Because, as Chase said, they have more electoral votes because there's a bigger population. They're going to have more representatives in Congress, which means a bigger congressional representation, which means they are worth more electoral votes. All right? So it's pretty simple. I think, at least Chase has it, it seems. However, remember this little factoid. In a really close election, even though we may seem pretty simple here, in a really close election, small states will still matter. I think that's kind of common sense, but hey, it is one of those things they really want you guys to know. So, Miriam, I've already answered that, but I'll just tell you again, it's 10. So, let's do some Quizlet really quick. And, that's really it in a quick way. So let's go ahead and do this. Political system with two strong political parties. This one's kind of common sense. Who's it going to be, Miriam or Chase? Two-party system is correct. So, they basically told you that one answer anyways. The number of votes cast by citizens in a presidential election. This is a good term I didn't necessarily go over when I was doing my quick review, so it's not a bad thing to know. I'll make it a little bit bigger for you guys. Okay. Whoa, whoa. There we go. Very good, Chase. So, the popular vote. That is just the raw number of who voted. So in the most recent election, Hillary Clinton beat Trump in the popular vote. Did that really matter? As you can tell, it doesn't, because Donald Trump won the Electoral College. Now they did that originally to make sure every state kind of had a say. Right now, yes, as I told you earlier, the candidates target the large states, but small states can and still have an impact and a role to play. So this was kind of a compromise system that they came up with originally to make sure everybody got a little bit of a fair say, because everybody had 2 senators. So popular vote is just the raw vote, though, of how 50 million to 48 million or whatever it was votes. The number of electors Virginia has, we've already talked about this. It's 13. Good job. Oh, really quickly, how did we get to 13? What's the congressional representation of Virginia? While you guys type that, I will wait. People who run for election to public office, we have talked about that as candidate. You should definitely know that by now. No, Miriam, not that. Close, but not all the way. People are elected by the voters in a presidential election as members of the Electoral College. And we talked about that, the electors. Okay. So my question that I asked a minute ago was, how do we figure out the 13? Virginia has 2 senators and 11 representatives in the House. So 2 plus 11 equals 13. In each state, there's 2 senators plus the members of the House of Reps. We've gone over this. I'm mainly just going to click on the right answers so we can, you guys can practice along at home. Congressional representation. Rule in which candidate who receives a majority of popular votes takes all that state's electoral votes. Winner take all. It even says, where is it? It doesn't say when. I thought it did, but it does say all. And it says takes. So, hopefully we don't miss out on the test. Now I'm getting the hang of this, guys. The number of electors Virginia has. Oh, now I gotta type. Uh-oh. Rule in which candidate receives the majority of votes takes all of that. Oh, I don't know about how I could spell here. No, look at that. Look at that. That's cheating. It's cheating, guys. Our electors. Again, I'm doing this more so you guys have something to study off quickly if you like watching it in the morning or something. Congressional representation here. Again, 2 senators plus our reps. Look at that. People who run for public office as candidates. Again, I was right. Just did the stupid thing. That's going to be the popular vote. And our 2-party system. So, I'm going to work on my spelling. Yay! I got a gold trophy. Alright, so I think you guys are going to be ready and fine with this. If you've been paying attention, Chase, Miriam, you'll be fine. You guys got any questions for me before I get off? I know it's a little bit quicker one. I would say this is a medium test. It's not the hardest, not the easiest. No questions? Alright, guys. Well, good luck. Remember, I'll let you play who wins to win the White House after they're there tomorrow. See if you guys can beat my high score. See how proficient you are actually utilizing the strategies to win the Electoral College. See how that goes. Alright, you guys have a good night.